MGTOW, MGTOW, was really the only men's movement of the 21st century that was actually worth anything, and perhaps even of the 20th century. There are a lot of misconceptions of what MGTOW was and is, could have been, whatever, when it began. There are a lot of disputes about when it began. Some say it began like the 2000s. Some were most people were introduced to it by like in the early 2010s. But essentially, it was a movement where men were basically getting together and saying that they were. It was like almost like a declaration of male sovereignty and independence. And from the outside, it was very, very like appealing to people, especially as like the internet was like in this middle stage of development comparative to what it is now. And for the first time, a lot of men were like getting together and they're discussing issues on their own terms. What was so fascinating about MGTOW was how it explicitly rejected traditionalism in ways that no other men's movement had before. It rejected all frames of reference that defined male identity from either a traditionalist lens or a lens that was centered around them serving women. I guess you could say no matter how much MGTOW opposed feminists, it was almost as if MGTOW were the true male feminists. Especially this one guy in particular who had probably the greatest impact on MGTOW thought and intellectualism, which was this personality known as Barbarossa. Barbarossa was probably the most influential person in the MGTOW space, and he often clashed with the traditionalists. Barbarossa was born in New York. He was like an engineer. He was by the time of the mid 2010s, like around the 2013 era. He was rather promiscuous, but he had a religious upbringing. I could tell because earlier videos he used more religious verbiage, but he was adamant that the movement had to be centered around male self-determination, male sovereignty, and male independence. There was a lot of talk about surrogacy and stuff. And what was fascinating about Barbarossa was, especially as he matured as a personality, online personality, there was virtually no hatred towards women in his voice or in his actions. It was almost all entirely centered about male sovereignty and independence, which is why I believe it was probably the most impactful men's movement in the 21st century, and perhaps the 20th century. It was genuine. He was completely genuine in his beliefs. But I guess most of the movement, I remember experiencing the clash between the MGTOW and the MRAs, surrounding the issue of marriage and stuff, and surrounding activism. MGTOW are pretty much against activism. They're just about self-determination. When I see MGTOW, it's almost like I see the lone. I know there's this meme that goes around the internet, Sigma male mindset, Sigma males, the rarest type of male. But literally, I think the Sigma male meme, it has its origins in MGTOW. But MGTOW was more sincere in its application of the Sigma male meme than at the actual Sigma male meme. It's the Sigma male meme is a copy of what MGTOW actually was. And I think that had it progressed the way it was progressing before like the Trump phenomenon, MGTOW would probably be a lot more mainstream now and would probably be a lot more positive and influential. Like even Barbarossa during the Trump phenomenon, when there was a lot of like right-wing radicalism being injected into the men's movement, Barbarossa was very standoffish about it. He didn't like it. Barbarossa is not right-wing and he's not left-wing. If anything, I would say he's more libertarian than anything else, but he's a lot more leftist than you would think. Because I think technology just in general tends to give the expression of human nature under technology tends to have a left wing bent, and it only begins to take a right wing bent, a right wing expression in totalitarian regimes, because technology simply grants individuals too much freedom. So anyway, Barbarossa was very, very apprehensive about how like the rise of like white nationalism and racism into the men's movement become so radical during the latter half. Anyway, I ran into some technical issues as I recorded this video. Obviously, you probably heard it, but so I lost my train of thought. So I'm just going to talk about some general MGTOW stuff. In addition to Barbarossa, there are people like Stardust, and I remember the tension between the like intellectual MGTOW and the more like pop culture MGTOW, like Sandman, who wanted to just make popular content and spread the message. MGTOW also had a lot of its like run-ins with people with mental health issues. Obviously, with any movement, especially any up-and-coming movement that's fringe, you're going to have people who are attracted to it because they have fringe personalities. Like, for example, I think his name was Angry MGTOW, who was Jewish and he was schizophrenic. And he had a lot of hang-ups about the fact that he was circumcised and stuff. And I guess he was attracted to MGTOW because the MGTOW was very anti-circumcision. And I guess somehow he went down a rabbit hole and he was exposed to MGTOW. And like I said, he's Jewish. He hates circumcision. He blames his parents and stuff. And he was talking about a lot of his sexual dysfunction and stuff. There was a lot of that cool stuff going on. Not necessarily it talks about sexual dysfunction, but it talks about male sexuality in general, how they oppose circumcision, they hated circumcision, they hated ego stuff, but they liked talking about like their experiences of like sex and stuff. It was very, very like there was no, even Barbarossa's own website was called Shedding of the Ego. It was very like no male ego involved. It was just like I said, it was like probably one of the most beneficial men's movements in the 21st century. And it will, I think that had the Trump phenomenon not happened, I think this is where I was going. I left myself off on. Barbarossa was very, very apprehensive and very, very concerned about the rise of Trump. He liked Trump in a sense because he believed Trump was going to help a lot of like men's issues like divorce and stuff, child support. But he opposed Trump because of the racism, the xenophobia, and stuff. Like Barbarossa, I believe he has immigrants in his family. If he's not an outright like first generation American himself. And then like a lot of MGTOW, I know it's a lot more anti-Semitism and racism on the post. IQ obsession, race obsession, even though MGTOW was explicitly anti-race nonsense. It was just man stuff, issues, period. No racism was in MGTOW. They tried to, it was like a lot of stuff, but overall, it was a very, very interesting experience to witness MGTOW in the early 2010s. And to where it is now, is virtually like non-existent. You have a lot of fringe people like Turd Flinging Monkey, who first began making videos, I believe, in 2013. I can't believe it was so long ago, but It was like in 2013. His most popular video in the beginning was a video entitled "She Will Never Love You." So I guess you can tell what influenced him to get into MGTOW. It wasn't like Barbarossa, which was like intellectualism. Turtling Monkey was into it because he was, I guess, burned, and he wants to watch the world burn. And now he's like on the fringe. He has like his own website. He still makes videos and like live streams, like 3 hour long live streams and stuff, 4 hour long live streams. I think I even saw one with like 7 hours. And I think he's one of those guys who just wants to watch the world burn. Not like in the I want to like go out and do horrible things sort of way, but just as I just want to be left alone and like say I told you so sort of way. But anyway, this is going to be my first quick video on MGTOW. I might make more, but this will probably do due to the earlier technical issues.